jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
Welcome back. Once again, we've got another special guest. We've got Ben Lawhorn.
How's it
3
going?
films and a movie.
Yeah.
3 films and a podcast.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, 3 films and a podcast. Very excited to be here. Very excited for today's conversation.
You guys are used to 3-part chats. We just took one simple chat. Like, what are the best roles of the entire cast of Ocean's 11? Because, I don't know, not everyone's going to want to listen to everything about George Clooney or Julia Roberts. So it's like, okay, let's just, all these guys are mostly powerhouse people, so let's just keep it a mini fun chat.
Exactly. This is a stacked cast without a doubt. We did a recast of Ocean's 11, and it was amazing how many people were just like, oh, I forgot. There's so many people in here. This is a good one.
Totally. So, you're an all round, just got like all kinds of genres, all kinds of blockbusters and crowd pleasers. Who would you say, which star kind of elevated you the most? Like, you kind of knew who they were, but you didn't know them until these movies came out.
I mean, honestly, it's like maybe like the older guys, like Carl Reiner and Elliot Gould. Like Elliot Gould, I think, is the one that stuck out to me the most the first time I watched this. Like, I don't know who this guy is, but I like him a lot. I like his personality. I like the Ruben character. So I'd say he was the one that really stuck out to me. I'm a longtime big crush on Brad Pitt kind of guy, so I was just always I was on board for this no matter what. But really getting to discover for the first time Elliot Gould and Carl Reiner and everything that he's done was just like, I really try to dive into them after seeing this.
Totally. Yeah, he was another one. He's like just in all kinds of movies everyone's seen. There are just a few movies kids could see, teens could see, and then there was other ones is like, even though R-rated, they weren't enough to where you couldn't not see them on TV some of the time eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, going to the MASH, movie and everything, and Long Goodbye, like he's had a great career without a doubt, and then this character itself, it just seems so fun. You get to be so like flamboyant and just like the outfits and all that kind of stuff. Like he was having a great time here. But it's always cool to come into someone, I guess, kind of late in their career and have a lot of stuff to go back and be able to check out and see how they, how they were acting before you were even born, all that kind of stuff.
Totally. And he had a funny interview. I'm sure you've seen it if you're following him, where he's like, people assume because you're beautiful looking, you might not be bright. It's just like, it is kind of hard because it's like, you see most actors in interviews or just anyone, whether they're giving a TED talk or some kind of entertainer, is like, yep, looks do go a long way. Even if that's not what you're being hired for, you're more like, people just tend to pay attention. And then it's just so wild. Then critics complain, oh, why did they hire people who look too beautiful to be believable? It's like, it's just part of the business. Just can't get around it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to have someone who, they can uglify them with makeup.
Yeah. And that's always, I don't know, that can always be really funny to see something like them try to like make people less attractive. We recently, for the first time for me, we watched Steel Magnolias on my other podcast, and it was just funny to see them try to make Daryl Hannah look homely, but it's like, that's Daryl Hannah, like she's beautiful, like you just put glasses on her. It's like, oh, she's just like a meek, homely girl. She's just always going to be that. So that is always kind of interesting to see them try to, make people less attractive than they are. But I agree. I think there's definitely a lot of PR reps out there who try to keep the interviews to a minimum, depending on who's doing the talking, without a doubt.
Totally. I don't think anyone can say that there's a moment where you're like, yeah, they kind of were appealing, even though I like him as a person, but God damn it, why are you so beautiful?
Yeah. How about you? Like the first time you saw this, there's someone that like stuck out to you in particular that maybe you were
it wasn't that far
with?
behind. So it was like 5 years, I want to say, after it came out. So, I knew it was a big deal. They're doing it all back to back with other blockbusters they're known for, like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and, for George Clooney, and then Pitt, it was Spy Game and a bunch of other movies, some where he was even the voice. And yeah, I know everyone likes to play the game of, they're overrated, oh, they're fine, or oh, I love them. And the biggest takeaway was definitely for me Matt Damon, because I was just already familiar with Good Will Hunting and Born Identity, and so I was like, okay, here he is, but he's not the main star. He's just third build and more just supporting, and Don Cheadle's in this. He's been in a bunch of other movies for Soderbergh, like Out of Sight with George Clooney, but this is different for him too. He's you've seen him in hood movies like Colors, and then you've seen him in
he's been in so much stuff. This was a very interesting role. I mean, seeing him do the British accent was interesting. It's definitely a decision to have Don Cheadle do that accent. I still don't know if I totally understand why. For me, he was Buck from Boogie Nights. That's kind of how I knew him at that point. So this was an interesting one, but I actually really like his character quite a bit. I think the Matt Damon one, that's another really good call, where it's like you're pretty familiar with him. But like you said, it was just, he wasn't huge yet. We had like Rounders and Dogma. He did obviously Good Will Hunting, but
Rounders as well. Do you think he would have done Oceans had he not done that earlier gambling movie?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what's also interesting, I think, is this role was originally supposed to be for Wahlberg, the Linus role. And then he had to back out or something, and then they brought in Damon. It's like, I can't picture that role with Mark Wahlberg at all. Like, I think Matt Damon was perfect for Linus, and obviously they really kind of like boost his character in the later films. I think as Matt Damon's star grows, there's like, oh, okay, let's kind of give him more of a role here. But he was great in this movie. I enjoyed his performance quite a bit.
Yeah, because he does say things, you're like, he just says it so dry, but it works really just so well. It's like just enough rehearsing and everything. And so when I saw him in No Sudden Move more recently, my sister and I were calling. It's like, we hear he has a non-Billy Tanner. It's like, yeah, he's going to be the important guy that we mentioned the whole time. Like, sure enough, he's the important guy.
Yeah.
The fun callback to all of Soderbergh's earlier movies, even movies like The Limey and everything. So, but yeah, this was definitely the first Soderbergh movie I'd seen. I had heard about him. I knew he was a big deal. He's an independent guy working for Warner Brothers.
Yeah. I was trying to go through his IMDb and kind of figure out. I think this is definitely probably the first one that I saw at all. Like, I mean, definitely like in the theaters. I'm trying to think of what I may have seen before. I think since then, going back and seeing Out of Sight, but I didn't see that, at the time. Same with Traffic and stuff. So this was definitely, I hadn't thought about that, but this is definitely my first Soderbergh movie that I saw. And it's kind of interesting to see his career and where it's gone. I really enjoyed his like Che movie. I thought that was really interesting. Both parts of those with Benicio. He's a cool director. It's kind of interesting to see him do his stuff.
He does his own cinematography, and just to abide by the Directors Guild, he would just change his name, and no one asked any questions, even though everyone knew it's him.
Yeah, exactly. And then doing, what was that movie he did, like Unsane, all shot on like an iPhone or something like that?
I was doing it around that same time, and I saw so many old geezers, they refused to get with it. They're still like, I still kind of consider that child's play an amateur. And I still see people bash it. I'm like, what is wrong with a iPhone? It's only bad if you don't know how to use it, or if the sound is bad, but that's just
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Like the picture's clear. Like you said, if you know how to use it, like it's amazing now what people have at their fingertips. Like I went to school for film, and like even just the equipment that we had then was outdated, even though it was only like 40 years old.
It was such a bastard just renting it out.
Yeah. Right. Like all that kind of stuff. But then, in your phone, especially now, you have like a 4K video camera in your phone. And if you know how to use it, like it can be used really well. So I appreciate people like him, directors like him, who are like willing to push the medium and not just, not stick in the mud, like only film, that
and not just
thing.
to get like, just to do a measuring contest or anything. Like they legit really want to try it out.
Yeah.
And they know, I mean, I even just, when I see a movie of his I don't really care for, I'm okay with it. It's like, okay, so maybe so-and-so's performance didn't really stand out, or maybe the character could have been more defined, but you're more experimental, so I kind of expect that from him, as opposed to other people who, can easily be labeled pretentious or overrated, award-winning, but not really appealing to a main crowd. And he kind of walks the fine line of, he can appeal to the ones who are sick of the oversaturated movies versus, more low-key, just fun crowd pleasers. And it's funny with Ocean's 11, I don't think it or now, I definitely think Now You See Me when it exists, but I think it and either film probably wouldn't exist without movies like Sneakers or just some of those other just wacky, just heist movies. Like there's this other one from the 90s called Safe Men with William H. Macy and Sam Rockwell. I'm like, yeah. That's
I totally forgot about that.
In the late 90s, that's where everyone was experimenting, and is like, if they weren't doing knockoffs of Tarantino, then then you get other movies like Boondock Saints and even other James Elmore Leonard adaptations. Is like, yeah, everyone's doing their own kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Not everyone can pull off Jackie Brown. A lot of people are trying to do that, but I think whatever it is that he brought to Ocean's 11, because like there's a very clear style to it, like even just like the music and all the editing and stuff like that. But I think that's what makes it work so well. And his style is like, he was coming off of Traffic, and then he was coming off of Aaron Brockovich before that. Like his filmography is pretty all over.
So fast, so that's
he really does.
I think he just chooses his shots. He knows everything in and out, and he's like, okay. And the only way it's going to suffer is if the actors are bad, if the scenery isn't well shot, and
yeah, exactly.
The stories are always just so simple and important enough, and they get everyone's interest just even reading it off, to where you're just like, sold. I'll just take it with a grain of salt. I don't know what I'm in for. And I think even when there's an actor or rapper he puts in his movies that I'm not necessarily 100% on, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's just I'm going to see him take out a different side of that person. So it's just kind of like when Aaron Sorkin gives dialogue to someone, or one of the other famous people like Spielberg or Scorsese, is like, okay, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be a different kind of a project. So even if I find that actor pretty unbearable in other roles, they're still going to be unrecognizable and just work for whatever reason. Just anyone can work. It's just the same thing. I consider it just like with actual work. We all work well with different kinds of people. So
yeah, that's very true. It's interesting to see.
You might be a bad singer, but you're a damn good actor. So
yeah, exactly. We're just
not gonna check out your new R&B or rock album, but I will definitely see you at the movies, my friend.
100%. Yeah, and I think he definitely can bring that out of all of his actors. Like one that surprised me that I was excited for, but I didn't know what I was getting, was like Logan Lucky. Like what am I getting here with this like Daniel Craig accent, and it's
I felt like the studio kind of screwed him on that one, because everyone was expecting Ocean's 11. You're like, no, I'm expecting it. It's a true crime movie, so with some dark humor. That's not at all.
No, it's not. I still had a really good time with it, but I think it was like poorly marketed.
Sudden moves, same kind of deal. And I saw some people complaining opening night, and me and my sister, we just wanted something very cool to watch on HBO Max, and we're just like, okay, well, whatever it is, it's more out of sight, but it's not even really close to that one either. It's just kind of a different kind of time period kind of movie.
Yes.
With eyes.
100%. And I mean, I think about bad marketing. I'm just even going back, speaking of Matt Damon, to like The Last Duel, you know, and the studio's like, hey, remember when they did Good Will Hunting? It's like, you should not be promoting this movie alongside Good Will Hunting because people are going to be so disappointed. Like, Last Duel is very interesting. I liked it, but it's like,
Apparently
this is
no one remembers The Duelist with Ridley Scott. So
yeah, it's just like, this is not the way you need to be promoting this at all.
And to be fair, it's never in studio anymore. It's always by people who are hired to do movie trailers now. And so,
that's
I'm
true.
sure I wouldn't be surprised if half of them slack off at their job and they're like, I find this boring. So what's the scene that's going to make everyone see it? Oh, I go to the scene that looks like and then from the director of Gladiator and Kingdom of Heaven. It's not trying to be like those.
Yes, exactly. It's like this, they'll throw out to like the lowest common denominator so that everyone just like cast a wide net. Like, you guys remember when they worked together before? Well, they're together again. But unfortunately, people come in ready for, you know, how about them apples? And then they get this really weird kind of Rashomon 3 versions of the story, you know, that kind of a thing.
And then have some fancy, you know, still from the same people Tarantino stills from.
Yes, exactly.
If it's not a Tired Usual Suspects bastardization, then it's going to be something else. And there was even a few other movies shortly after this that I would occasionally see on something like USA, FX, or even Spike TV. There was one like Welcome to Collinwood, and it's like it had like Christopher Walken. It was like produced by Clooney and Soderbergh, and Clooney has like a brief part as a guy in a wheelchair or some shit. And I was just like, that was interesting. I kind of glad I just saw it at 2 a.m. versus video store, and just because as is it too. These movies got me kind of ready for just, you don't know what you're going to get until you just got to take the hit. You're going to probably have to find out the hard way what the movie's about, and sometimes be disappointed by, hey, that was good, but it wasn't great. And it was okay, but it's kind of more confusing. I should have just watched the special features first before I saw it.
Yeah, I feel like there's I like to call those, I'm sure a lot of people do, but just kind of like airplane movies. It's like, all right, I've got, you know what I mean? It's like, I got 4 hours to kill. I'll watch this now. I'm stuck here in this metal tube, so I'm going to put this on. We'll see.
I totally do.
Like,
there's no harm in recording it. I still have a digital, you know, video recorder, so it's like there's going to be some stuff. It only exclusively comes on cable TV, especially how convenient when it's not on streaming that month. So it's like, I'm going to watch this now because everyone's now at the point where they're just trying to save money.
Yeah, it's like we've recreated cable again by trying to get rid of cable. You know, it's like all these streaming services and stuff, and it's just
very sparingly buying DVDs and Blu-rays now, or it's like, okay, when it gets down to the $20 mark, then I'll press buy on eBay. But now it's going to have to wait for the next 5 years.
Yeah. My physical media purchases have definitely slowed down as streaming has become more popular, but there are still the must-haves where it's like, I don't know when it's going to be taken off or whatever. Like I want to have this, you know? So that's very, very interesting for sure.
And into the 2010s, you definitely see the actors themselves. Like nowadays, I'm really not surprised when I see Julia Roberts, Andy Garcia, or even Brad Pitt in a video on demand movie that played in theaters.
Yeah,
they did, in addition to like some bigger movie. Andy's interesting because he's kind of, you know, you just always serious, and you just always see him in the talk shows being so funny. You're like, why did they just not offer him comedy? It's like Ocean's 11. This is like as close as you get to comedy for him.
It really is, and I think he pulls it off so well.
Not known for being profane. He was just one of those guys. They just like, okay, he's going to be, you know, FBI agent number 1 or Mr. President or Mr. Wacky Salesman, you know, but that's it. It's just very sparing.
Yeah, I think, I'd love to see him do some more funny stuff, and maybe I just haven't seen it, you know, maybe it's out there.
He has too huge a resume, so yeah.
It's quite long. I'm trying checking it out now.
This was like the second or third stage, I guess you could say, of his career, where it's like, oh yeah, I've seen him.
For sure. I think he was like perfectly cast in this. Like, I think it takes a certain person to be kind of go toe to toe with Clooney as far as like being suave and all that kind of stuff, because they are kind of the same person, or versions of it. And
even though it's PG-13, it's not the kind that really just holds back or anything. There's still some wacky content, and it's like it could be rated anything. Whatever it is, it's going to be an easygoing crowd pleaser.
Yes, yeah, for sure. So I'm big Andy Garcia on this one. I think he did awesome. I'm trying to think of what I first saw him in.
Untouchables, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah,
he was in a bunch of mystery movies and dramas.
Yeah, I like Andy Garcia though. I think I need to check out more of his stuff. I've heard good things about City Island and some of those other movies, but I just haven't gotten around to them yet.
Oh man, that has to be in his top 10 somewhere.
Really? Yeah, I think it's that's the other part.
Oh, there you go. So that's a comedy, but it's a light comedy as opposed to just in your face kind of.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing these in that Mamma Mia sequel and Pink Panther 2. So it's maybe they've given him some fun stuff,
It's whatever he's comfortable with. The one Spanish-American War movie he was in kind of bombed, but it was cool to just see him in it, because even though there's an unconvincing horse riding double, is kind of a passion project that he co-produced. So it's he does them here and there, and he's in this other crooked cop conspiracy movie called Bent with Carl Urban and Sofia Vergara, and that's one of those, despite it seeming like it could have easily been just kind of a movie that went out to maybe die on Prime or Netflix, it fortunately got a VOD and limited release, and it was just one of those. And I even reviewed it for another podcast I was on. Shout out to Film Strip and Jay. It was I was just like, hey, he's showing his age here, and there's clearly some ADR, but it's not half bad. It could have been so much worse. It's a decent Saturday night movie, even though it's technically could be Sunday had it been made by anyone lesser.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm looking at the last thing I saw him in was Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, which I had a great time with. I thought it was really funny. It's just very going with no expectations.
I need to see that. What did you think of his Ricardo Montalban impression on that one? My Dinner with Harvey or whatever.
Oh yeah. I saw some clips.
You keep forgetting he's in there. He's like, oh wait, he's playing Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah, and in Barb and Star, he's playing Tommy Bahama, which is just kind of perfect. He gets the kind of suave, a little bit of the funniness there, but. I've heard really good things about
touches, and it's okay, that's his shtick.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I think another person from this cast that I really was surprised by that I enjoyed was Bernie Mac. I thought he got used pretty well in this. My experience with him was very limited. I honestly think it may have just been the original Kings of Comedy stand-up special.
That would have to be at that time, because I don't think many people had seen The Players Club, even though it made decent Ice-T and
that's true.
Ice Cube and
I think
cinema.
I had seen Players Club. It was one of those things I think in middle school or whatever, I maybe shouldn't be watching this, but I'm going to. I didn't remember him in it. I just remembered him more from the original Kings, but I had no idea who he was, and he closes out that special
a year later, and
and I was just who, why? I know Steve Harvey, I know D.L. Hughley, Cedric. Why is this other guy the closer? And then he goes out there and oh my God, he's the funniest guy out of all four of these people. Of course he's the closer. It's why haven't we seen more? And then, he gets the Bernie Mac show, which I think was really, really good. But I think he's used wonderfully in all of these Oceans movies. It's perfect for him.
Oh, totally. Did you ever see Soulman?
I don't think I saw that one.
That was probably, I think
one of his last ones, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just because the rest of the time he was doing stand-up or just comedies not as many people saw, or just cameos as himself, and I was just that's one I would recommend, because he really did play against type and get to be a little dramatic there in between just the light comedy. Him, Sam Jackson being semi-retired Motown guys trying to go at it one last time.
Nice, yeah, I'll have to check that out. I feel like I'm
came
here
out after
for
he had passed away, and it was just this is
funny.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I'm wondering if Bad Santa. I think that's one, and Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle. I think just kind of these other.
It's Head of State. That was one of those. It's funny than it actually is, but it's cool to see someone come up with a clever concept, and then the rest of the time it's just voiceovers.
Yeah, exactly. But I gotta add Soul Man to the queue because, I mean, Bernie Mac, I think he brings it pretty much every time.
Life.
So.
Remember, he was in Life.
Oh yeah. Yes.
But that's it. It's just supporting stuff. Just rarely the lead.
Yeah, not getting a ton of just like, front and center stuff. So I think that's also why I enjoyed his character so much, especially in the Ocean stuff, because like those segments that we would get with him when he's like trying to sell the machine. I think that's in like 13 or something like that. Like we just really get to see his charm and who he is, just at his peak. I think just kind of just like let Bernie run loose, just like start rolling the camera and let him do his thing.
Oh man, if only.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Matt Damon earlier. It's interesting how he's just kind of quieted down. He's just gained all the respect. So kind of like, George Clooney's kind of sticking to directing. Like it was given away that he was directing new episodes of Marvel's Moon Knight because the cinematographer put his name on his resume. So
did he? Oh man, I missed that. That's kind of funny.
He did that Catch-22 thing I didn't see, but I saw the clip where he was playing the Colonel because he was like the producer of it. But so that's just it. He just does casual stuff now. And for a while, it seemed to me like with this and some of his other entries, I thought he was going to be like an action star or something. And then it just seemed like he just went back doing the drama. I don't think he wanted to do From Dusk Till Dawn or The Peacemaker or Out of Sight type stuff anymore. I think.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think, living on Lake Como, like it would take a lot to get me out of that house too. I'd have to like really be passionate about it because that's a beautiful place. I think my favorite of his, without a doubt, is Michael Clayton. We're going to be talking about that on my pod coming up here in about a month or so. That's just one of my absolute favorites that I think not a ton of people have seen or maybe have heard about.
I'm in love with that and Syriana, even though Syriana gets a lot of hate nowadays. But I just thought they were both very highly charged movies.
And there's a solid run there. Like Good Night, Good Luck. I think he directed that, I believe, right? That was one of his first like directing jobs, and he was great in that with David Strathairn. Like they were awesome. So he had a solid run there.
And that's just it. It's like that's all they need, and now they can choose to do whatever they want from there.
Yeah, exactly. And like on top of all this, like we haven't even mentioned ER yet, which he was just like,
and I think he wanted to get past that too. He was just used to being the suave, handsome guy and playing the detective or the hospital guy, and I think that's just. But that was just one of those he couldn't outrun it, so that's why he had to make occasional appearances when everyone's like, "Hey, ratings are down. Can you just come back? Just one episode. Just make a cool cameo."
We just need you real quick. We need the original.
You can just play George Clooney playing what he thinks is the character he played 10 years ago.
Just stop in real quick. We need the original McDreamy back just for a sec to boost ratings. But man, we just rewatched Batman and Robin, and that was a tough watch, man. That was very tough. I forgot just how bad it was. Like it is over the top for sure.
It's amazing.
I mean, yeah,
sarcasm.
It's like bad. Yeah, it's like it's bad enough to kind of be enjoyable. Like
I really am surprised it didn't kill his career because it made enough money, but we were just so taken aback. It's like, wow, there is such a thing as too much camp.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and to some extent, I guess it's great that it like killed Batman because then we're able to reboot a little bit and finally come back with Batman Begins. It's like, so thank you for killing Batman for a while there. So Schumacher didn't keep, just making all this color fest stuff. But man, that was that role's got to be tough to like take on like that. Especially
he didn't hold back. He was like,
he was there for the camp, which was great. I think he was doing pretty good. Adam West, I think he was channeling the old TV show for sure. It's like, we're just going to go full camp on this.
It's just one of those, it just was too much. It's just too dumb for its own good.
Yes. Yeah. Like what are the ice skating with a diamond and stuff? Like what's happening right now? But some great villains in that one though. I really like Uma Thurman and Arnold in that one. They're there for the right movie. You know what I mean? Yes. All those bad everybody chill puns and all that kind of stuff. Like, okay, these guys are here for the right thing. But I mean, looking at his, like in just a couple years later, did like Three Kings, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's a good point. I don't think he would have done Ocean's 11 had he not done that. I mean, he was going to definitely do something with Soderbergh after Out of Sight, but yeah, you get to Three Kings, and it's like you go back to it, it's like, I want to know how many saw that before they saw Oceans versus saw it afterwards, because I saw it just because it was on TNT, TBS all the time.
Yes. I think that's exactly, I think I bought it in like a $5 bin at Blockbuster or something, like when they were closing out. I was like, all right, I'll check this thing out. So, yeah. And I always like, again, go back to his IMDb. I think it's funny that he was
and
on
you can't
South
classify it. You're just...
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
It's a war movie one minute, then it's a dark comedy the next, then it's a action heist movie. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, I just wonder what David O. Russell showed up to shoot that day. He's like, we're going to do a dark thing today. It's like, okay, cool. Well, hopefully this can all come together.
Yeah, but Clooney was part of a South Park guy. They're like, hey, we can't lie. He's pretty good at what he is, even though we're making fun about everything since. Let's just have him play the voice of, like, was it the dog? Stan's dog?
Yeah, he's the dog. That's what I love so much. Is like people were like asking to be guests on the show and stuff, and they're like, all right, Clooney, you can come on, but you're a dog.
And then he spoofs his ZR character in their movie again. So it's like, I think he got the business at a young age, because, I mean, he was just following his cousin Miguel Ferrar's, footsteps. So
I think one of his that like took me a while to appreciate, because I really love the Coen brothers stuff, but Oh Brother Where Art Thou didn't really hit me the first time I saw it. Like I came to it very late, and so I think like the hype was just really built up,
and it set the bar too high, because then you see some of their other shtick and it's like, but it's just not as good as Fargo or Oh Brother.
yeah, exactly. So but I definitely came around on that. I really enjoyed that story quite a bit. I mean, he's had a solid career. I think he deserves just to be putting his feet up right now. Did you see Burn After Reading?
I did, and it's just so wild how he just plays it just so straight faced in that entire role, and then Brad Pitt's in it, and he's the comedic relief, and then halfway through the movie he gets killed, and you're like, it's this kind of movie.
Yeah, here we are. Just like there's that that Brad Pitt gif now of him just like pumping his arms in that bicycle suit. It's like that's all that remains really.
I think Intolerable Cruelty was kind of as close as he went. But see, that was kind of more them just making fun of romantic things, and it was like, well, this is it. Do you want Clooney in Chick Flickville, or do you just want George Clooney playing George Clooney?
Yes. Yeah.
And so he kind of was on that streak for a while where he's just showing up in a bunch of other experimental stuff with them, but he's
he had a couple of good ones in 2009 too. I mean, Up in the Air, I enjoyed.
I don't think you could even do that movie now. It's just too close to home,
Oh my God, I cannot even imagine. And that was definitely my first.
That was just a decade ago. So he's like, what happened?
It's crazy.
They get too sensitive to where everyone just wants mindless shit all of a sudden. They don't want anything.
Just hitting way too close. But quite a cast. But that was my first Anna Kendrick experience for sure. And I think Vera Farmiga as well. They were both really great in that. But Clooney holds that. But then also in 2009, he did Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was super fun.
And the political and campaign movie he does with Gosling that he directed.
Oh, yeah. Ides of March.
That's another one where I'm like, I like that concept, but God, it really does get under your skin so much where you're like, it's just not entertaining to me in even a West Wing way. It's kind of more of a interesting. I think God, it really disturbed the hell out of me to where I'm like, I don't know if I can call it good or halfway there or
Did you have you checked out The Descendants? I'm sure you probably have.
Oh yeah, I actually related to that a lot because I had some family from Hawaii who had
really
passed away under similar circumstances. I know other people thought it was overrated. I thought it was just at least a fun crowd pleaser. I'm actually surprised it took him a while to work with Alexander Payne.
Same. I mean, and if nothing else, it's beautiful. It's hard to make Hawaii look ugly, so it's like a beautiful film to watch. And then
he's being serious for once as opposed to reserved and then kind of wise-assed like he kind of started off doing.
Yeah, it was a cool role to kind of see him take on.
I think he was just one of the few movie stars. He kind of just was so focused on activism that he was able to get away with it, unlike other people who just too quickly, are caught, flipping off the, paparazzi or, at a bar far too late in the day. He was kind of avoiding that and just, there was even a pretty heated, I don't know if it was Entertainment Weekly or Forbes, but I remember seeing part of this one article and the pretentious interviewers saying he politely avoids my who are you dating question. I'm like, well, yeah, he's not gonna. You're never gonna know. He knows. He's anticipated it. I don't know. So I think whoever it is, his PR people or whoever, someone must have really coached him really well, and he's just like, okay, so and so I think he's kind of is like Will Smith or even Travolta to some extent, where he's like, okay, he's had his moment in the sun. He can kind of take a break for a while and then come back and surprise everybody for a while.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like he can come back, he can pick and choose what he's wanting to do. I mean, because he did that Money Monster and Hail Caesar in 2016, and like you said, we didn't really see him until a little bit in Catch 22, and he just hasn't been around a ton. But I think that's
people
great.
would even bring up wacky jokes. Do you know you started off in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes? It's like, yep. Everybody starts. Did you know Tarantino wanted to work with you because he saw some B movie you were in? I'm like, yep. That's why I worked with him. He was a fan of me, and I was a fan of him.
Yeah, he's, I don't know. From Dusk Till Dawn is that's an interesting watch. That was one of the. I'm trying to think of like when I came to Tarantino, because that was one of the later ones that I checked out.
And isn't it funny how everyone just downplays how it involves vampires, and other people is like, they warn you it's a vampire movie, but you just forget it because you go in and it's like the first part is a violent heist movie.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like, oh man, Robert Rodriguez, what a director. It's a fun watch, I think. But yeah, I think people go in expecting something different than they end up getting, for sure.
How about Elliot Gould? This was definitely the first movie I ever saw him in. I had heard of him, and I know other people recognized him because he had just been in Altman movies and just other key parts. But now, the Friends got him, kind of made people remind him, saying, hey, you can be part of a comedy ensemble, and now he's on Ray Donovan. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's probably the first thing I knew him, or I didn't even know him from it, but like the first thing I probably saw him in was Friends. And then later on, like with Oceans, then it kind of like that was the connection. Like, oh, okay, that's
one of those guys who your parents know, but you are just like, I kind of know. Some of his movies aren't really played on antenna channels as much; they're kind of only on the satellite channels. So.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Then, needed. Let's see, like American History X. I know. I kind of forgot that he was even in that, honestly. And then MASH is I think one of the only other things I saw, and that was something that like a parent, like my mom recommended it to me, and so I initially was just like, okay, then it's gonna be bad. Like if she wants me to see it, I'm not gonna see it.
Not gonna get it, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, but finally coming around to it, it's like, yeah, that's really good. I think also one of his more famous ones was Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, but for me, he's just
one. He's in Escape to Athena, but I don't remember him that. And he does a cameo in the original Muppet movie, but come on, that's right. A miss it moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but he's, again, I think another perfect casting there. I mean, when I think of Ocean's 11, that's one of the few scenes that comes to my mind right away is when he's trying to get everyone inside for the chat, and Matt Damon's outside. He's like, "You having a good time here?" He's like, "Yeah, great." Get in the house,
The only F-bomb in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like, oh, all right, cool. I like this dude. So yeah, his performance was wonderful.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I think I'm from Utah. I live here, so
nice.
The Mormon twins, I think, kind of hit close to home.
I definitely got some crazy Mormons in my family.
Yeah, this was that's how I was raised that way. So seeing them on screen, I mean the way we meet them with this like big monster truck and then like the toy monster truck was just great. And the whole high scene was like, I'm not touching you can't hit me, all that kind of stuff. Like, oh yeah, I definitely know plenty of these annoying twins right here. This is great. But I'm pretty sure
the notes that they got eventually, like Don Cheadle realized his British accent was too ridiculous. So he's like, how about I go uncredited? And I'll just that next movie and we'll write it in that he's part of my con.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Julia Roberts, you kind of go in expecting she's the main person. You're like, no, she's the supporting person, but she's also the main, like what the character wants is to win back her affection from the mobster she's in bed with. So
yeah, and like what a payoff too. I mean, we get the actual like heist itself, which is really cool, but like I don't know, that ending, with Julia Roberts and like turn on the TV and the whole, thing with Terry Benedict and like, I'll give you the money, all that kind of stuff. Like, man, it played off so well, and she played that wonderfully. Like their dinner scene when Clooney comes to join her and they have that conversation, like it's just two actors just going toe to toe. And they were, again, like you needed someone as powerful as Clooney and as Julia Roberts to like go to match each other. And I think
I would always hear how she was very opinionated. And I don't know how much of that was just some toxic masculinity or just just spoke her mind. But yeah, it was like, I never had an issue with her, but I know other people would like, be like, it was kind of the Tom Cruise effect. We're like, okay, good actor, but
yeah, I mean, I want to be with him, but I mean, for me, like just for my child and stuff, she's always just going to be like my Tinkerbell. Like I love Hook.
There you go.
I can't deny it. That's just like, I really think like I had seen, that might be the first movie I saw her in, actually. Like I know I saw Sleeping with the Enemy and Pretty Woman way too young. The first thing I really remember her from is Hook.
There you go.
I don't know that I want to remember her from Sleeping with the Enemy, but
I think that's just it, just unusual early stuff.
Yeah, without a doubt. So yeah, and then since going back and seeing Mystic Pizza and Steel Magnolias and stuff like that, but man, she's another one. It's some of these people, it's hard to, you can make an argument for a lot of these people that they've had the best post Ocean's career, because there's just a lot of big hitters here, like you said, between Clooney and Pitt, and I think Julia Roberts and Matt Damon are up there as well. It's like they've all had insane careers.
Damon was cool how after a while he stopped doing stuff with the Afflecks, and I know Casey, and Scott Caan are kind of supporting it. I kind of feel like they kind of just have always played that kind of persona in every movie.
Yeah,
it's worked well, and sometimes it hasn't. And this is before Me Too. Casey is just. It seemed like that's just it. It's like, I'm going to play the smart ass so I can understand why he was in, Gone Baby Gone, with his brother directing.
He was great in that.
And Scott, I mean, I really wasn't surprised when I saw, him just show up here and there. And then next thing you know, he's on the new Hawaii Five-0. I'm like, totally makes sense. He's just,
it was the perfect thing for him, from going from, Varsity Blues and Boiler Room and remember that like WCW movie they tried to do, Ready to Rumble, and he's in that.
It's just like dorky movies, and he's one of those where everyone kind of forgot he was the son of James Caan, and that was okay. He was just similar attitude and just be part of an ensemble, just fit in with the crowd. And
and he did that great. I think my favorite of his post, or outside of Oceans, is probably Gone in 60 Seconds, but that's just another one with like a really fun cast. That's a good cast for sure.
So there you go. Be in every crime comedy that comes your way.
Yeah, just if it's an ensemble crime, get in on it, because it's going to be a good time for sure.
It'll dry up and you'll wish you'd be part of the ride. And then, Eddie Jameson, there's another one. I would see him. I saw him in The Punisher in a Brit part, and then just appear on Letterman in various skits, and then he was in the Veronica Mars movie. But then he's also with Soderbergh in The Informant, but I think what I mainly know him for is just small, just TV stuff. Like he's on that show Hung, and that was an uncomfortable show.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that show. Yeah, I did. I was surprised how many credits he had, because I don't know that I had really seen him in much.
He's just kind of always fell into that mold, play a dorky, nerdy guy.
Yeah, and he does it well enough to have 78 credits on IMDb. So it's like it's working for him.
He's both Irish and Italian, so that kind of makes sense. He kind of he never really got pigeonholed into mobster areas so much. It's just be a goofy guy. Yeah,
and he played it perfect. I think him as Livingston, like the whole just like sweating and everything like that. Like the comedic aspect of it was wonderful. There's a lot of like comedic characters in here, but him just kind of being like a very nervous straight man worked wonderfully.
Totally. I definitely recall his guest spots on Legion and Rizzoli and Isles, but anyone who's been watching TV probably knows him from iZombie and Chicago Man. I already forgot he was on there, and I just went through that thing. So it's just it's not that he's a bad actor. He's just he's part of a huge deal. So
it's just one of those faces, one of those guys. Like, oh yeah, I know him. But he's made a career out of it, and that's awesome. I'm sure there's a ton of people that would love his career without a doubt. Oh yeah.
It's a shame that Catherine Zeta-Jones gets to appear in just Ocean's 12. You know, it's like they never brought her back.
Yeah, she was really good in that. And again, I think that's another one where you have to cast someone that you can believe can like go to toe with.
She's already been in Traffic. I thought Traffic's good, but I found her part kind of questionable. But yeah, she's done some other stuff with Soderbergh, and
she's great though. I mean,
Mask of Zorro. I mean, just.
I mean, I came extremely late to it, but I think I finally saw Chicago for the first time like 2 years ago. I was like, oh, she was great in this. This was awesome. Like she does this like really well. So
it's like she was trying to do so many things all at once.
Yeah. But there's that time, like you said, like she's doing Mask of Zorro, she's doing Entrapment, and it's like, oh, she can be like kind of the action star love interest thing, you know?
I don't think she would have done some of these other blockbusters. When I finally saw her in The Terminal and Red 2, I was like, okay, interesting. So, so she's being that gal. She can be the accident gal who's in a bunch of other stuff. And I think she just got, she just took a while in between roles because she was suffering from bipolar.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
But that's just so far behind because, again, just most of these guys are just on their best behavior. I think they just really got a good whiff. Like the most you're going to get is who was Brad Pitt married to, and that's it. Like,
yeah, like so she did. What else did she do with Soderbergh? Oh, she did Side Effects. Mm-hmm. I don't remember loving that one. I don't know if I was. Stuff. Did she? Okay, yeah. I don't think I was in the right headspace when I saw Side Effects.
I couldn't get into it, but what's funny is I had other pals who I would have thought would have hated it who really liked it. They're like, "It's nutty enough. I'll take it." I'm like, "Really? Okay, interesting."
Right. Yeah, I thought I was just like, man, everyone else seems to be getting this, but I do not. So I'm glad to know I'm not alone on that.
Well, good news. If you've seen the serial killer dark comedy mystery show, Prodigal Son, she shows up later in season 2.
Oh, cool.
She was a really creepy doctor on that.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, another one that I kind of went back to that was great to experience his career was Carl Reiner.
Yes. Oh, my God.
I really enjoyed like the whole Nick at Night when that first was running because we get Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, I Love Lucy, and to go back and be like, oh, that's the guy from Dick Van Dyke.
He was very similar looking and kind of similar in approach to Alan Arkin, but yeah, he was the Godfather, just writing for TV and occasionally acting in front of the camera. So it was kind of what's the other guy? Mel Brooks kind of approach, and it made sense why they get along. It's like they're best friends. It's like same kind of career. Just been in the industry long enough. Everyone wants to work with them. Everyone loves them.
Because they both started out with like Sid Caesar, I think, like writing on the Sid Caesar show.
Mentor, and I kind of knew who he was without actually putting 2 and 2 together because I watched plenty of Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore growing up. But this is like the first movie I see, like you see him in the flesh and he's hysterical. He has some great dry lines and he just looks so natural wearing that top hat to where you're just like, I buy it. Of course he's part of this whole gang. And I think it just helps that it's not as reliant on off-color dark comedy as most of these. And yet at the same time, they just kind of remind you, it's like, hey, we're just so you remember, we're not the greatest of people, but we are stealing from crappy people who don't deserve this amount of money.
Yeah, his that scene at the races when Brad Pitt goes to recruit him and then he just like looks at his tickets and walks off. Like, yeah, this guy is great. I think I had recognized him from being on Dick Van Dyke, but I didn't place it at the time.
It just takes a while because, like you say, everyone had
so
TV
familiar.
land, but it's...
Yeah. And then, he's also like aged 40 years since Dick Van Dyke. So it's like, I think I know that guy, but he looks a lot older now. But
man,
yeah,
before
Carl
he passed
Reiner's
away,
great.
I would just, anytime he was showing up, he always came on like Conan those last 5 years, like twice a year, and he killed it every time because basically they would not only do a fun clip show, but they would also he's just a natural storyteller.
Yes, 100%. He seems like someone that would be like a dream to have as a talk show host because like you just
Betty
let
White,
him kind of go off.
All those cool cats. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I feel kind of the same thing. It made me think of like Norm Macdonald, where it's just like, just say whatever you want. I'll just like sit here and you could take off. You do your thing.
And Norm is just another one. He should have been in so many more movies, but just because Dirty Work, just no one wanted to distribute it, and
yeah,
it's just such bullshit. There is like, who cares what OJ thinks? That's why you fired him from SNL, because someone plays golf. Screw that.
Yeah, he was, man. I love Norm. Bob Saget directed that, right? Dirty Work.
Yeah,
I think.
and out of a favor, he made Dick from just directing the whole thing. He's like, I owe Norm and I are great friends, and I'm like, and it's a shame because like they keep releasing the Blu-ray, but it keeps going out of stock every time, and especially post-death. Like you can only, if you want anything that's decently priced, you got to find the DVD. And I'm like, no, I want the Blu-ray with.
Yeah, I want to see it better. I don't want.
It's a shame that there's no special features for it, because it's another one where it's just like everyone thought it was bad because other people involved with it kind of catered to it. And it's like, no. I had seen part of it heavily edited on ABC Family, and before I put two and two together, it's like, oh my god, I have seen part of this. I was dog sitting one day. I'm like, this is the movie I grew up watching, but everyone would always change the channel, and I didn't know what was going on. But it's just funny how it implies some dark material without showing it. And it's just But it's one of the few movies that, you know, modified from an art of 13 that still doesn't truly affect it. It's still pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. He's great. And I still think of him in basically like a lot of the Sandler stuff, you know, just floating around in that pool and Billy Madison and all that. And then obviously like Weekend Update, he was just, man, he was great at that. He's got to be like one of the top 3 Weekend Update hosts ever. Like he was wonderful.
Totally. Also, the final one on this whole rap sheet is Shiobo Kin.
Yeah.
Amazing Yin. And yeah, he just was a real life acrobat. And I was just always surprised that he didn't try appearing in some other movies and shows, but it's just like, that's just it. He's
yeah, honestly, like I said, we did the recast and he was the hardest one for all of us, because he's just like you said, a legit acrobat. He's only been in 4 movies, and it's been all the Oceans movies. That's like all he's done, which is great. But it's just like I feel like he could have been utilized maybe in some other places. But he's another one where it's like
you almost would look up. It's like, was he part of Jackie Chan's stunt team? Nope.
Yeah, exactly. Like, was he doing anything else? But he's also the guy I think that they gave like very few lines to, but when they did, they just like hit almost harder than anybody else's. You know, like. It's like, where the F you been? You know, like all that kind of stuff. Like, okay, cool. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It just gets played perfectly. But he was great for that role.
1,000%. Great stuff.
Yeah. This is quite the cast, and they've all gone on. I mean, Cheadle now being in the MCU. Like, I'm kind of curious to see where it goes from there. Is he the only one? I'm looking at this. Like, I think he might be the only.
Remember Matt Damon's the actor playing Thor in Thor 3.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's like actor Loki or whatever. Like,
but people were joking he should play Aquaman or something.
That'd be kind of funny to see. That was like a kind of double take moment.
So he's already a superhero to me.
Exactly. Yeah, and like those movies, I think were wonderful. Like especially that first one, Born Identity, kind of blew me away. That one was just the like choreography, and then like again, like doing film for a living, like the post-production of all the editing and stuff is like very fast, very shaky, but I think used efficiently in these Bourne movies. And then just like we talked about, everyone trying to like impersonate Tarantino and whatever afterwards. I think a lot of people tried to do the Bourne Identity shaky cam.
Even Taken. This is like,
yes. Oh my god.
This is like, okay, it doesn't have to be a kidnapped daughter. This is a bad Lifetime movie with good acting at this point. It's not good.
But talking about editing, like there's one scene in there where he jumps a fence, and there's like 13 cuts just in that one scene where he's jumping a fence. It's like, we know Liam Neeson's like 60 now. Like he can't just like jump over it. Like we can alter this a little bit. But
yeah, I think they were just sticking around too much with it. They're kind of guilty pleasures, even though I don't like that word, but I'm just like, yeah, I mean, who else was going to do it? You know, just we're also kind of in that day now where we can kind of accept just trashy movies even more. It's not just go to the video. It's not just, we don't even have to go to the video store anymore where we're embarrassed what we're checking out for the night. It's just like, you watch it.
Yeah, we're not walking down the aisles or anything. It's just, you decide if you put this on your letterbox or not.
Giant roaches from Mars. Yep, that's me.
Yeah, that's mine. It's also kind of crazy how he became like an action star in like the third act of his career. You know?
Yeah, he had done some action movies, but he just wasn't known as the action guy, and so it's just And Matt Damon, same kind of thing. Like, we kind of think of him as a semi-action star, just occasional, but he he only did it because he's like, okay, it's not James Bond. There's no disrespect to women or anything. It's just you're playing a guy who has to tell the truth through brutal means. It's like, okay, interesting. That's it. I'm gonna look at it.
Yeah, man. I know Liam wasn't in this, but I pulled up his IMDb, and he did Les Mis in '98, and then Episode 1 Star Wars in '99. I was like, man, what a back-to-back acting job there. That you have to like really just kind of like switch your mentality. It's like, all right, I'm not Jean Valjean anymore. I'm now Qui-Gon Jinn. It's like,
yeah,
but he pulled it off. I'm curious if he's going to show up in this Kenobi show or not.
Oh, I will bet you money. I know Sam Jackson was confirmed as being spotted by
really? Yeah,
people in London.
Because they talked about it like in Episode 1, right? Like, I'll teach you how you can talk to your master or whatever. So
I just want him to confirm that he survived the fall, because I know Jackson was joking. Yep, it was the Force in my mind.
Yeah, get that purple saber back. And there's gonna be plenty of cameos.
To a cave, helped a random planet out in the future, but died an old Jedi.
Yeah, if Darth Maul can survive that fall, I think everyone else will be fine.
Oh
too.
yeah, and especially when you bring Darth Maul and he's been cut in half and he's back in a cartoon. It's like, come on.
Yeah, nobody dies.
Oh yeah, no body. And resurrection activate.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, did you see him die? Like, and that's, we get that sometimes in movies now. It's like, well, didn't actually see him die. So
and speaking of which, that's what I kind of got old with some of these heist movies. They would do the whole, well, you didn't see me die at the start, and then after a while it would be too predictable because you're like, I've already seen them do that in a Tarantino or Ocean's 11 type movie. So
yeah, you can only pull it off so many times.
And sometimes, like, don't get me wrong, you mentioned some good heist movies that these actors have happened to been in, like Entrapment, and after a while it did seem as like I missed some fun movies like that where it's okay if it doesn't all add together. It doesn't feel hackneyed. It just feels style over substance and just like a fun Friday or Sunday movie. But at the same time, it's like there were some where it's like, ooh, too much wrong sauce. Just the wrong kind of cast, the wrong kind of person to shoot the movie, just too MTV edited to where it just really felt too brain dead.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, there's just
you watch Mission Impossible too much as a kid.
Yeah, you dip to the well too many times. It's like, we get it. Like,
someone rewrote the final acts, and now it doesn't add up at all.
Yeah, just becomes kind of frustrating. But I'm curious. I think one of the only ones we haven't really talked about is Brad Pitt. Like, I assume obviously
this
like
Spy Game. I think I just wasn't surprised when I would see him just be the best part about any movie, regardless of whether anyone liked it or not. Like Interview with the Vampire, Fight Club, and then California. He really rescues in some ways because that's a good movie with a kind of ho hum final act. Like, it's just not to the same. It's just getting a little too much for its own good. It's kind of crumbling. You got just bad mistakes that every other '90s movie seem to have, where characters repeat themselves too much, give too much away, or become just plot devices, and cops can't shoot straight even though they're shooting point blank range. And
exactly. Like stormtroopers.
Yeah. It's just like, if you had just cut it a little differently, I wouldn't be looking at that just very distracting blooper. And Brad is just very frightening because you're just like, and he just really knows how to compliment the good parts of the script, where it's like, here's how these journalists got sucked into this psycho couple's, reign of terror. And at the same time, there's another one. It's like, I don't think Michelle Forbes would have done as many noir movies or crime shows had she not been in that. Same thing with Duchovny. I don't think he would have been in X-Files type stuff. And same thing with Juliette Lewis. I don't think she would have done Natural Born Killers the following year had she not been in that.
Yeah, movie. What a back-to-back for her. Going from California to Natural Born Killers.
And so, in many ways, I think all these actors definitely just, complement each other in many ways. And then, Killing Them Softly was a movie I couldn't get into, but I just love the premise of just showing what happens when gangsters still during the Great Depression of 2008.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I was the same. I was so excited for that movie.
Ray Liotta, Gandolfini.
I know, and I was just like, it's like looks super dark and like almost noir-ish, you know what I mean? And
you want to talk posters, misadvertising. It's like, there's Brad Pitt on the cover with a shotgun. I'm like, okay, but
yes,
that's like 5 seconds of the movie. Come on, damn you.
100%. But
stop doing this. I don't, because even if he not a high body count, you're making me think he's going to go around stealing from people. It's like, yes, but not exactly.
Yeah, and that cast is so like strong. The movie should have been
Same
better.
thing with Fight Club. They show him bare chested. Some foreign DVD covers show the fights. It's like, but it's not about the fighting. It's about the psychological mind game.
A very small part of this, but I mean, I guess when you have shirtless Brad Pitt, that's what you're going to market with. But yeah, he was a good surprise in True Romance for sure.
True Romance, and I keep forgetting he's in it in that and Thelma and Louise. But then when people mention, like, that was interesting because the reason people remember those roles, I think, is it's not just because it was his earlier roles. I think it's also even when he's in dorky stuff like Eric at the Mall or that one true crime movie he also did with girlfriend Juliette Lewis. I think it was also just he just knew how, the camera just loves him. He just knows how to just stand a certain way, and you just totally change in the room. And I would still see people who just weren't buying him, who still would say, "Oh, he's the worst part of 12 Monkeys or Seven." And I was just like, I don't have a problem with him in those either. But it's kind of a Tom Cruise, Will Smith thing. There's just some people you just can't tell them otherwise. They fucking hate the guy, so they're just gonna hate anything they're in. So it's like, okay. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have a problem with them like I do have these young actors. Because
for me, that person is Russell Crowe. I don't know why he just rubs me the wrong way. I get so
real life
frustrated.
Bad boy attitude, and I think that's just it. Brad Pitt, he would see him play these bad boys, but you're like, at least I know that other than his crazy romances, he's not known for being a douche. Otherwise,
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, this is the guy that's like married to Rachel. Like, he's not that bad. Like, he's just he's just acting this way. So yeah, I mean, he's had quite the career too. In
all fairness, his romances with Gwyneth Paltrow and what's her name, Angelina Jolie. I mean, those guys are also known for being kind of wild. So it's like,
yeah, for sure, 100%. Man, he's had quite the career. I'm trying to look at his stuff, like even just post Oceans, obviously like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, that led to a big thing. I mean, speaking of Casey Affleck earlier, the assassination of Jesse James, I don't know if you've seen that one. I really enjoy that movie. Like, it felt long when I went into it, at the time anyway. It was like, oh, this is almost 3 hours. Like, I
definitely think his acting is the best part of that one.
Yeah.
It's just one of those, it's interesting. I just don't feel like it has to be, 2.5 hours, but it's definitely well shot and harkens back to old school Westerns
for sure.
I think, that was by the same guy who did Killing Him Softly.
Oh, was that?
So there you go. Wow. So he
Andrew
found
Dominic?
his own collaborations and
interesting.
But that's a good point because like they all do these kind of trippy, very hard to define kind of roles that anyone else would be like, had this been in the 70s or 80s, they would have been like, oh, it's box office poison. No one will see that. So a different mentality now to where it's like they were embracing as many projects that were at Sundance as they were at, where they were first up on the invite to attend the audition,
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think, man, I mean, talking about movies that paid off in my anticipation, Inglourious Bastards is definitely up there.
He gets to work with Tarantino again.
Yeah. I love that.
Do you ever feel like after a while they kind of seemed like they would flip it? Like any role he didn't get, Matt Damon got, and vice versa?
Yeah, I could easily see them like
because Damon kind of coasted. He would do, I really think he's amazing in The Informant, actually. He's playing a man who, spoiler, thinks he's right. He thinks people are stealing from him when real truth or not, he's the con man and he's just conned himself too much to where, the reality is blurred. And, but I would see some of his other movies that they made bank, but they just weren't seen by as many people. Like with Greengrass, like I thought Green Zone was a great movie, but no one wanted to see it because, you're calling the U.S. terrible. You're without saying it, but still enough to where people are turned off by it. They think, oh, it's a Born Identity movie. No, not exactly. It's kind of a conspiracy movie. What would happen if someone found some of Saddam's, regime and, was stalked by a bunch of Blackwater people who are also trying to kill anyone who knows anything. So it's a dark subject matter for a blockbuster in the summer.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, that came out in 2010 as well as like the remake for True Grit, which I thought he was really good in.
He really was, and he had been in bit parts in westerns like All the Pretty Horses and everything, but they just hadn't made as much money, like Geronimo and all that. And so it's like, but yeah, same kind of deal. I heard he and Pitt basically had the same kind of mentality where if they weren't getting along with the director, they're still professionals. No one's going to do the whole, I'm going to walk.
Yeah.
And during World War Z, again, Mark Forster and Pitt, again, differed so creatively. So they did the whole send assistants to talk to each other, pass notes. And same thing with Matt Damon. Like the original ending that Tony Gilroy had planned basically would have killed the character and some other dark stuff. And he's like, no. The audiences will reject that. I absolutely refuse, to do that. So love you, Gilroy. They still work together since writing scripts for each other. But he's like, no, it's just, I'm going to hire my pal, Scott Z. Burns, who I'm working with on Contagion. He's going to make this ending be a more slam bang kind of plot twist. You can't do the audience dirty like that.
Without a doubt. I mean, sometimes, I think we hear sometimes about that with certain, like Ed Norton or whoever, where it's like,
same kind of deal. These guys, all these guys we mentioned that worked with people like him, and same kind of deal is like, no, duly noted. I am going to, overwrite you politely.
Yeah, it's also in terms of Ed Norton, it's like, man, he wrote himself out of the MCU basically, which is kind of nuts for what that really turned into. Nuts, it's like,
regardless of whether you like that movie or not, is like that's one hell of a performance of his portrayal.
I enjoyed like.
It's kind of why I had faith in it, because it's like if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be an actor who's kind of just known for trusting the audience with atypical kind of roles only he can kind of play. So yeah, for sure. It'd be a totally different character. I think now I'm enjoying Ruffalo. I think he fit into the role really well. But that was another guy, and again, starting bad made for TV and B movies, and just was ready to give it up until it's just slowly but surely getting some small acclaim here and there, and then.
What do you think was his like break? Was it the? I'm trying to think of
indies he did in the 2000s, with Laura Linney and a bunch of other people, and it was just one of those. I think Glass Castle helped. He was just and Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx. Everyone forgets he was in that. I remembered him from it.
True, yeah, and like what else? I mean, Zodiac, obviously. Yeah.
So David Fincher and those other guys definitely helped him. He's like, he can be low key and everything. So it's like, yeah, of course, he's going to get all the movie and TV offers now.
Yep, for sure. And I think, maybe as far as rom-coms go, I think 13 Going on 30 is pretty fun, and he's great in it. Yeah. I think the first thing I really connected to him with was like The Kids Are All Right. I think he had a really great performance in that. I think it's a really interesting movie. I think that was the first time that I was like, oh, okay, Ruffalo, got it. Like I've seen Zodiac and some of these others, but that was the first time I think I really connected with him.
Definitely a good display in that you're just finding, again, people who, again, they've done their homework where they can do the whole just market their looks and then market their talent. It's hard to balance all out. You really have to just suffer for a while before you get good at it. Yeah,
yep, that's very true. Did you see, I mean, Ruffalo wasn't in Oceans at all. We're sitting here talking about him quite a bit, but did you see that? I know this much is true, that TV series he did where he like played the twins or whatever?
It's on my to watch list. I'm just like, I've been meaning to watch it. I just haven't yet.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, we don't need to obviously spend too much time on it, but I think that's an interesting challenge that we see from actors sometimes, like, an adaptation and stuff is like when you're playing off yourself basically. And I think he did it really well.
Loves to tease the ones who do the whole, I'm never doing a superhero movie, and then now everyone's doing it in this day and age. I'm like, well, the market changed, Meredith. Just because they accept a role doesn't necessarily mean they want to do it or have to do it. It's, again, like, I remember James Spader is quoted as, there's a Soderbergh connection, sexualizing videotapes. He's like, I never turned anything down. I'm not in a position to. And Buscemi was the same way, although he would pretty much, not, he was a matter. I was like, I'm a character actor. I service the movie, and the mansion is important.
He's awesome though. I'm always
He
here
picked
for
his
his
good ones though. So it's like, because he was part of the Tarantino crowd and the Coen Brothers crowd and the
Yeah.
Michael Bay and the Adam Sandler crowd. So it's like that's 4 different crowds.
It really is.
For.
Yeah, we do like a segment when we have a new guest on that we call our Desert Island, where like you get to pick a filmography of one person to take with you.
Nice. What
And
world do you want to live in?
Yeah, exactly. And I think some of the best answers include people like Steve Buscemi, or someone just said Ed Begley Jr. Because you get so many things.
I would
like
totally live in the St. Elsewhere universe, because then that means I'm also part of the Law and Order and Homicide universe.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like some of these actors, I think, just they know what they're good at, and they're perfect for it. Like my favorite Sandler one is still Big Daddy, and I love Buscemi's little role in there is like the homeless dude, and they're like arguing about McDonald's not serving breakfast anymore. It's like, this is a great little just role just to kind of hang out, with your friend for a little bit. But
He kind of plays that in Mr. Deeds again, I think.
Yes, yeah.
That's what's the most common meme I see when everyone does the whole "looks fine to me."
Yep, yeah, that one's.
So there you go. You made it if you're a meme now.
Yeah, once you get meme, and oh man, him and the wedding singer, I think that might be one of the best too. When he takes over the mic and just is super drunk and just yelling at everybody. That's Buscemi's great, but and I at least just have to mention Big Lebowski, because that's got to be in like one of my top 10 movies of all time. I really, really love that movie, and he's wonderful in that.
There you go.
But yeah, talk about the Coens. There's so much crossover here with this Ocean's cast.
Right?
Yeah.
It didn't happen overnight.
It's very true. Very true.
Oh, man. So this one hell of a time just summing up these actors who were just kind of again, second, third stage of their career just in this movie. Do you think it's just one of the few that you'll be damned if you know anyone who hasn't seen these movies?
Yeah, it feels like I'm just blown away.
I don't think it's on Netflix necessarily, and this was a while before HBO Max offered anything in the Warner Brothers vault. They're just almost always just on.
Yeah, it really is.
I would commonly see it. It's the CBS or TNT movie of Saturday,
Without a doubt. And I think, I'm sure, you check your numbers and stuff too for like listens, and the Oceans one is like one of our more popular ones. And I think it's because people know the movie so well.
Inside and out, they can't have enough of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like they can go into it comfortably. Like, oh, I'm familiar with this. I've seen this. Like, I'm more surprised if people have like only seen it once. It seems like everyone, like, it's a kind of a comfort movie for a lot of people.
I think I've seen it twice, but it's still been a minute. I just often catch parts of it just once, every year.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of like Independence Day. I'm just so busy enough, and I'm trying to catch up on all the other stuff. I just don't make time for stuff that I've seen 100 times, unless it's just a show that I just like, okay, screw it, I'm going to rewatch it. It's that good. Yeah,
I feel you on that. I think there's definitely some of those I think become like I do like chores around the house. I want to listen to something, so I'm going to put this on. Like it can become kind of a background movie pretty easily.
It really can. And you're just like, I know it enough. Now I'm looking for the stuff I didn't catch the first dozen times.
Yes, 100%. Like I do that. I'm sure there are tons of people that do, but like I'll do that often with The Dark Knight, where I just like put it on. It's like I know what's happening. I've seen this enough, but it's kind of fun. Just
I would even mention it to my folks. I got introduced to it from my cousins. Because
nice.
It was their favorite movie, along with Snatch and the various other crime comedy movies like Usual Suspects and Pulp Fiction. And so it was just so funny how my brother instantly likes it, and he would reference it as like probably his number one heist movie. He hasn't even seen all the other ones like Dog Afternoon and Heat. But my sister liked it, and she and I really dug Ocean's 8. That was a fun theater visit, but it was also just kind of funny how it just commonly just cited is just like, Now You See Me was kind of also popular, but it was kind of like it or hated in some crowds. And this one was just one of those, just like people just dug the style. And I don't know what it was. It's like people who even for whatever reason hated George Clooney or Julia Roberts' guts would just mention that movie as saying, that was just funny. And like,
yeah. And there's enough like other people they're surrounded by that, even if you don't like one of the people,
a wacky premise. And I would even mention it to my, we needed to find a movie that everyone could watch one night. I'm already an young adult, but I remember we just randomly went to Blockbuster like a year after Ocean's 13 was out, and I synced it up and watched it with the family. Which is funny is my uncle and dad, they love, thinking man's kind of movies, just like, Die Hard or Ronin or, Tom Clancy stuff. So they're just like, yeah, it's been a while. I know I saw it on cable TV back when we had bootleg cable. I just never watched it around me, but I know they had seen it. It's just one of those funny rules. It's like, yeah, you've seen it. You've seen Fifth Element. You've seen this. You've seen that. I'm like, and so it's so funny that they instantly light up. They instantly know who everyone is. They know no recap needed. They're like, yeah, the Chinese guy who can do it, the acrobats, the one guy who's always a potty mouth, the one guy who's,
it's just like hanging out with a group of friends, it's like, oh yeah, I know all these people.
And they've done enough other similar spy or heist movies where it's like, yeah, it's fine. They're doing what they're comfortable with. So,
well, and especially with 13, because then it's like, oh, Pacino's in this. Like, I'll check this out.
Yeah, a movie that everyone can see without worrying if he's going to say something too naughty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
I think he still got away with one F-bomb, but yeah, Ellen Barkin is there, and it's like
Ellen Barkin. Yeah, she's great in that.
Vincent Castle of all people reprising the same thief from part 2, except this time he really gets more to do. Julian Sands, you're like, oh, hey, you're getting into real pop culture here. That dude's the foreign bad guy / gambler / just horror creature in every movie.
Yes, and then
you got him in this, nice.
And also just like, hey, why don't we just throw in Eddie Izzard for a second? It's like, oh,
yes.
Okay, cool. I guess I wasn't expecting that, but that's
I was
awesome.
actually surprised Izzard hadn't worked with Soderbergh earlier, because he just seemed like, again, he just was an infectious kind of comedy, kind of like Ricky Gervais and the Monty Python crowd, where he took the world internationally, and yet, it's just so wild how he was able to do it, because there's so much homophobia and other stuff coming along, and he's doing making fun of British humor that doesn't necessarily catch on with every crowd. He's making fun of cross-dressing, as well as just other satirical stuff that just, for whatever reason, just was off books. No one wanted to do it. No one was comfortable doing it. Anyone who did do it often just got ignored. Everyone wanted their fart and sex and swearing humor. And it's just so wild how you never knew what you're going to get. If you're going to get Dennis Leary Flow or George Carlin kind of insightful and occasionally rude, it's just a special blend. And when I saw it, that was around the time he was doing a lot of movies. So it was just a delight to see him in movies all of a sudden, because you're like, he's got one hell of a voice. He kind of looks like Tim Curry, but more ginger. And yet the way he's going about all this is just very interesting.
Yeah. He's entertaining, I guess, to say the very least. Like when he's on screen, he's definitely who you're focusing on.
He could play it straight. He'd be entertaining, and that would work in a comedy or a drama. It doesn't matter. It's just,
yeah, I enjoy Eddie Izzard quite a bit.
And it was wild. Like, he was another one. It's like, I would bring him up, and everyone was talking about the same person at just one social gathering. It just took us a minute. It's like, yeah, we're all talking about the same person. It's just, you didn't know his name. This person knew who he was, but they'd seen a different special than I saw. It just somehow is, and that says a lot, because I can't remember the last time I saw anything of his on Comedy Central. It's just another guy. It's just word of mouth just keeps him alive, and enough of everything. Eventually, everyone wants to work with him, and everyone will pay money and form some kind of fan club.
Yeah, he's a draw for sure. Like when he shows up, you're like, cool, I'm glad he's here.
Is there anyone in these you're surprised wasn't in here?
That wasn't in the Oceans ones?
Yeah, I would have just thought, years ago they would have probably gotten someone like Jim Carrey or Jack Black, who were just on the rise of their startup. But no, this wasn't that kind of movie. I think the most you have are people like Topher Grace playing themselves.
Oh my God, the poker scene's just like some of the best stuff.
I'd only seen like part of that 70s show, and even I knew what they were referencing. Like, oh, haha.
Yeah, and what's he like in Ocean's 12? I think he's talked about like he mailed in that movie with Dennis Quaid or whatever. It's just like kind of funny to hear him talk about this. But I mean, you mentioned Eddie Izzard kind of looking like Tim Curry. It's like, man, I think Tim Curry could have like played a pretty cool role in one of these movies. I'm sure he
might have been one of the number one picks, and maybe they couldn't afford him. I don't know.
Yeah, quite possible. Because
that was when he was having health troubles too. So.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, there's like a lot of other reasons. He was mainly just doing like voice stuff when all of these were going on, but that was another new one for me in the past couple of years was Rocky Horror. And I was like, holy cow, this guy is fantastic. Like this is what a performance. It was amazing.
What won't he do?
Yeah, he would have been great, but it's hard. It's like man, there's so many people in the oceans. It's like I'm trying to think of people who weren't, just like obviously there's tons who weren't, but it's like I don't know, like I mean, Mark Strong could have played like one of the bad guys or something like that, like,
he was still on the Ridley Scott card. That would have been expensive. Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, I mean, what about you? Is there people you had in mind that you think would have fit in with this crowd?
I feel like just with so many movies that have been kind of takeoffs of this, like Tower Heist with Ben Stiller and Eddie Murphy.
Oh yeah,
I love it as it is, but I wouldn't have minded. I don't know, just maybe just some other just like. It's wild how there's cameos by Henry Dickinson and Henry Silva who have very small parts in the original, and they were quoted as saying, I mean, they love the Rat Pack movies, but they weren't necessarily crazy about that one, so they just wanted to do a better version of it. It would have been funny had they, I don't know, gotten just someone else who was kind of known for kind of doing a lot of, I don't know, maybe if they got someone like from Who's Line or Mad TV in there, that would have been a kick for me, but. Because I just watched so many sketch comedy shows growing up, so I was all about just seeing what they could do when they surprise you in an atypical dramatic role.
Yeah, the way, I mean, you obviously know they can work with people really well because it's like all that is, for Who's Line and Mad TV, just all the collaboration, so they could have fit in. I mean,
perfectly. There's a riff tracks of this, but they're not riffing really so much as just talking during the movie, kind of just noting the comedy that's going on. It's great because it's with comedic singer Richard Cheese.
Oh, really? And Lounge Against the Machine? Nice.
Yeah.
I love Richard Cheese. I got to search that out now. And he's the perfect guest for this, like the whole Vegas, like lounge vibe.
Exactly. He knows that crowd, so he's just kind of saying that's not how you go against a slot machine.
Man, I need to go find that right now. I really want to check that out. I love Richard Cheese.
It's a slower riff than usual because, again, like Lord of the Rings, they're just talking during the movie, or Casablanca, they did that too. Where it's like, we're just talking during the movie. We're not necessarily attacking or riffing the movie.
Yeah, it's like some of these, kind of hard to rip apart.
But if you just want some funny commentary on the side, you've seen it 100 times. Here we are.
That's a wonderful suggestion. I really, honestly, want to go check that out.
Okay. It costs you free $5. Should be easy.
Worth it.
Hell, I might have it in my iTunes account. I can send it.
Oh yeah, I'll have to see. Yeah, this will be worth it for sure.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being on here. So, Three Guys on a Podcast. How did that form?
Yeah. So, I mean, I do with a couple of my friends, and honestly, I mean, there's a long version. The short version is that like I was on like a DVD collectors thing on Reddit, and we tried to watch 500 movies in 1 year, which was insane. I think I got to like 400. I don't know how any of these people did 5, but there's like a list of qualifiers. It's like whatever, like a different continent or all these directors. A friend of mine found out about the list. He's like, hey, we should challenge each other to watch movies. And then we brought in a third friend. And that's kind of how it was. And we did it even before the podcast started. Like one of us would pick a theme, and then all three of us would pick a movie that we hadn't seen. And then we would watch that. And just like, we honestly just had like a big group chat going, like, oh, what do you think about this? Whatever. And then, maybe a little under a year or so into it.
Let's record our funny chats.
Yeah. It's like, why don't we just talk about this? Like, we just like text each other all the time. Like, why don't we just like talk about it? That's kind of what it's from. So that's the premise of the show is like each of us pick a theme for the month. Then we all pick one movie that falls into that theme that we haven't seen before. And then, yeah, that's what each episode is. So this year so far, we've done like multiple female leads where we watched Steel Magnolias and Beaches and Last Night in Soho. We did Kurosawa. So we watched like 3 of his movies. So yeah, it's like, there's we get to come up with whatever theme we want, but then, yeah, the movies just have to fall into that. So
and Criterion now has its own channel, so it's like everybody's going to be watching a bit of everything. You don't have to wait for these to come on Turner Classic Movies or
100%. I think HBO even like bought Turner Classic Movies, so like
they were always part of the Turner family, but yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. So but I mean, as far as HBO Max, like how they all came together, like I think you can now find so many Kurosawas on there. So
yeah, if it's airing that week, it'll be on there for at least that month or the summer.
Nice. Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, anyways, that's kind of how it came about. We we kept rewatching like The Office and Parks and Rec. It's like we have every movie at our fingertips in the world.
We are so spoiled.
Yeah, it's like let's just watch other stuff besides, watching The Office for the 10th time. So that was pretty much it. I have another one with another buddy called 24 Minutes of A24. And it's pretty much that. Yes. We do one A24 movie at a time, and we try to do 24 minutes. I don't think we've ever done that. I think the shortest is like 27 or something.
Because you're dealing with some very mind-fucking kind of movies. So
exactly. It's hard to like wrap them up quickly. And we even like covered
it, you really love it, you can talk an hour, and then there's other ones like,
yeah, it's like let's get through this one. So that's actually who I was on earlier with tonight, and we just watched High Life, the Claire Denis movie with Robert Pattinson. So I don't know, that one's, I'm really enjoying that one as well. So if you're interested, you can find us anywhere. Just 3 films and a podcast.
Did you see The Farewell?
Oh yeah, actually, well, we watched that for 3 films. Actually, we haven't talked about it yet for A24.
I know it inside and out, and I've only seen it once. So
oh man, did you enjoy it? Did you like that movie?
Oh yeah. Well, what's funny is I actually suggested to do another podcast, and it broke them. And they're like, "Oh really? Let's do something different." I totally understand. And it was one of those. It wasn't that it was just unwatchable, or that you're just like, "Oh man, this movie knows me inside and out at funerals. Yeah. I can't do this."
It can be pretty heavy, but I loved it. I thought that movie was beautiful. Like I loved all of that. I'm ready for whatever Lulu Wang does next. Like I think that movie was great. We had a really good time with that one. So yeah, so those are the 2 that I do. But honestly, it was fun to come on here and just talk about Oceans and relive those movies and this cast, which is just got to be one of the best ensembles ever, I think, in a movie.
Totally. I think you summed it up. Alrighty. Well, you be safe out there, sir. Welcome to the next collaboration.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to coming back.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try?
They must be destroyed on sight.
The new Podcast Cure-All, sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of...
They must be destroyed on sight!
As needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies. I heard you like to hustle. I heard you like podcasts. Well, guess what? There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle. Damn right. Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us. But do we actually talk about the movie? Most of the time. Tangents galore. Yes. So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We might talk about video games, music. Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there. Yes. Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ. Yes. I am the master storyteller of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers, the Google Play, Apple Podcasts, what else? Podbean, what else? Podcast Addict, goddamn, all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby. Hustle, motherfucking hustle. Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ. We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair say all that good fun stuff. Well,
Fuck you.
Don't run the listeners away, PJ.
I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll go end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen, and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this movie.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going to be a rough
How did you watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our queue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. Whether one last plot holes or gratuitous movies, it's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything: pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant, 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up